I bring to you a lot of interesting people, and I talk about their experiences, about the way they look at life, about the way they see things differently. Today, I have somebody who I've known for close to a decade and a half. Every meeting with Sylvie has been very interesting. We have talked about the world, we have talked about diversity, we have talked about technology, and she has been an amazing leader all these years. I've seen her do different works, I've seen her look at different teams, I've seen how she has worked internationally, I've seen her work like 23 hours in a day, I've seen her take on, I think any problem statement come to her and she would have some kind of thinking about it which is very different. So I could not resist the temptation when she came to Pune to be here with us, that I could get her to speak to all of us and pick up something that we can from the conversation about how we see things differently, about how the world is. Sylvie currently is the CEO of Shared Services of Publicis, and she is in Pune. She's sitting in an office here, and being an old friend, she dropped in for lunch, and as I said, I couldn't rest but getting her to all of you. So, Sylvie, let's talk about a couple of things. First and foremost, my belief, and I may be wrong, that slowly the world is getting very polarized, and it's not the kind of world that we would look forward to in terms of, I personally believe, is getting to a more unsafe place, the way things are happening. Since you traverse the world and you see so many countries and you look all over different markets, what's your view on this? Do you agree, disagree, or it's a different view that you have?
No, definitely, and thanks a lot for this nice surprise, because you just put me on stage with no notice, so it's very nice, and you're always full of surprise. We all believed we have seen the end of history, in the sense of the history which is written by conflicts and invasion and some leaders trying to grab territory, etc. And we see we are very much back to history and back to multipolar world with very strong poles, which we would not have expected to see in a world which was supposedly more evolved, sophisticated and democratic. So we are back to those times. We need to obviously deal with it. For insurance, it's a lot of uncertainty, and that's your raw material, and we need more than ever insurance and reinsurance. I was interested in Davos by the fact that everybody wanted to project themselves into the post-war situation and to try to prepare today the post-war, thanks to insurance solutions, which would help companies and interested parties to invest now and start building the future for Ukraine, for instance. And insurance had a key role in creating some sort of certainty in today's world to already think and build the future. And for us in marketing, communication, advertising, consumer experience, dealing with that world of uncertainty makes us more even challenged in terms of understanding our audiences, making sure our communication mode is not misunderstanding, and making sure we are actually following the trends, following the right channels, the right ways to get to people, to allow brands trusting us to actually reach their audience in the best way, in an agile way, in that world which is more and more complex and fragmented, I would say.
One of the solutions that we feel for be it companies, society, or be it for countries is that if you have good diversity in decision-making process, you would be able to make the world much more safer, much more better, and much more livable than what it would be heading to. Now, it's easier said than done. A lot of people talk about diversity. When you look at the boards, if I look at women leadership across positions, we don't see many. Now, you have been a very powerful woman leader, and you have been there for so many years at that position. How do you think, and what do you think are people getting wrong? Intents are not wrong. When I meet people, I generally feel they're trying their best, but still something is getting wrong, something they are missing. So what as per you, would you think they're missing on that basis?
No, I think what holds still true is people want diversity, which talks like them, thinks like them, behave like them. So in groups, for social cohesion, you expect certain behaviors. There are unstated social norms and codes, which people are even often unaware of. And when some individuals coming from the outside don't observe them, it makes the group very uncomfortable, and also in terms of communication, very non-understanding of what's happening. So I always remember an example at Allianz, which was when Oliver Beto did the first meeting, or it was maybe Tickman back then, did a meeting with only female in the room, and he arrived, and females didn't stop talking and didn't sit down quietly to listen to him. And they had to call everybody to just calm down, sit down and listen to the boss who had showed up. And they were like, a male audience would have known that. They would have caught it immediately. They would have done it spontaneously. Those ladies, they really behave strange. And so it was okay because it was a group. But when you are like the one or two different individuals behaving differently from the rest of the group, it's even more uncomfortable. So that's why having groups which are by definition diverse in terms of gender, ethnicity, age, professional background, grown in the same company or coming from another company, is by definition forcing you to try to understand others and to question your norms and behaviors. But also, if you are the only individual being different, you need to be aware of those group behavior to do your best to actually read and understand and make yourself compatible, because it's nice to have a different point of view as long as you can make it heard. So you need also to build the bridges and to be what I always call different but compatible.
It's very interesting because I think this is a problem that the world has to solve. I think companies have to solve, families have to solve, society has to solve. The diversity, acceptance of views, I think that would be one of the solutions if I look at the polarized world today. But the next important thing which is happening in the world is tech. I think it's going crazy. The way I see it, be ChatGPT happening, I see humanoids concept coming through, I see the AI coming through, ML coming through. The way the world is changing at such a rapid pace. Like when I would, let's say, take myself 20 years back, if a change would happen, it would be happening, let's say, a decade's time. Today, a change is happening every 10 days, every 15 days. But just keeping up with it and seeing how businesses move and how the society would move is amazing. You have been so much into tech, you have been so much into solutioning. What is your view on this?
Yeah, so often people ask me how I could move from consulting to automotive to insurance, assistance, then net zero decarbonization, renewable energy, electric vehicles, and now advertising. And honestly, the red thread was really technology-driven change. And it's a very consistent thread. And when you look at advertising, I always take that example. It's fascinating to see how it moved from being all about creativity, shooting wonderful movies for the Super Bowl advertising, which is still something we do, into media, which was media planning and buying some media space. So trading into actually digital media, more or less half of the market, which allows you to be super granular, which is totally questioning creativity. It's not one Super Bowl spot. It's 40,000 versions of the same asset, the same message for different contexts and different target segments. So being massively segmented, differentiated, personalized. And then when you are on digital advertising, digital communication, you are one click away from your consumer, which was not the case with TV or press advertising, and you can actually engage, dialogue, drive the consumer to your website, and actually finally not only sell space, media space, but sell truly target audiences, sell ways to reach out to those people in a very granular way, in the best point in time, in the best place where they would actually listen and engage. And so if you look at that journey, it's massively shifting toward digital targeting, digitally reaching to consumers. And now, as you said, with ChatGPT and others, with generative AI in general, digitally producing all or part of the messages with all the questions on IP ownership and who is actually driving the content and how reliable is the content. And I was really interested in one, again, Davos. I was very inspired by Davos this year, discussion, which was about human versus AI. And it was, for instance, if you take the car example, it's quite worrying that people can be driven by the car and suddenly if there is a crisis situation, the car would switch off and give the decision back to the human being who might not be so attentive, paying so much attention, or not so trained any longer to handle emergency situations. So isn't it a bit dangerous to actually have AI doing everything, except when it's really super critical and complex, and then the human beings are not trained anymore to actually take over. And some point of views where it should be exactly the opposite. We should have human beings driving 99% of the time and AI supplementing them and supporting them when it comes to critical situations when they might not be taking the best decisions, like driving on ice, for instance, and they should be helped by the algorithms of a machine. And so this question of how human beings are going to find their position and their added value in a world where you can automate more and more is going to be, I think, a social and not only in the workspace, but more globally in society, a very central question in the coming years. And us, as I was saying, we see it from multiple angles. So having this right cohabitation between the human beings and machine is, for me, one of the fascinating philosophical and social questions in the future. And I'm fascinated to see how science fiction writers, how art as usual, was forecasting the future. How 100 years ago they saw all what's coming, like autonomous fight drones, which were called Terminator, all the debate about Turing test, how do you know it's an AI, how do you know it's a person, and what is an identity. It's just amazing that those things could be envisaged even before the basic technologies which could take us there were even invented.
So you see, on all topics, she has such an amazing view. As I mentioned to you, it's such a pleasure listening to her. Any last words that you want to talk about, Sylvie, to people who are listening to you right now?
No, it's a pleasure to be visiting you in India. It's a pleasure to see such a forward-looking leader like you encouraging the next generation and inspiring them. And I think I'm always very, very inspired myself by the way you lead people, the way you actually show the direction in a very supportive way, being very present, and in the same time letting them walk the walk and make their own experiences and discoveries. So I will try to take some of that back home and some of our inspiring lunch discussions back home for my own leadership.
Thank you, Sylvie. Such an honor and pleasure to speak to you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining in. Thank you very much.